Hey, it's Matt with another episode of Unbearable 73. We're back to reviewing live action Avatar The Last Airbender. This is episode 5. This is probably going to be a short one just because this episode is like, it's trapped by the previous 4 episodes worth of bad writing, right? In and of itself, if this wasn't Avatar The Last Airbender and it wasn't Aang and Sokka and uh, Katara, if it was, you know, uh, Kato, Mariko, and Mifune, for example, as 3 different characters who weren't in the world of Avatar, another world, this could be a good episode. There's terror in it. There's, mystery. There's exploration. There's a quest. There's a lot of stuff in this episode that on its own could actually be good. But when you plan it in the context of what they've done, and I'll just give you some brief comments here. They established in the very first episode that Aang has his full powers. He just doesn't know how to control them to the point where he would. The only thing he doesn't know how to do is enter the Avatar state at will. Okay, he has his full bending powers. He just needs to learn how to control them so to hurt other people. They've established that in the first episode. Okay, so he's really powerful, and his ability to enter the spirit world is one of those powers. Okay, because he's part in the spirit world, as even the show points out, part of the being the Avatar. Right. So if he has his powers, logically, he's. I'm sure if I could put it this way. In a place where he shouldn't be worried about hurting immortal spirits. What I'm getting at. Okay. Now bending kind of works differently in the spirit world. That's true, but the powers still kind of work there. Okay. So he should be able to sort of do more than just run away, and fly to Roku's temple. And that's another thing, because they decided to limit the ability to access the older Avatar incarnations, right, to only where the temples are. We have this whole like twisty side episode where Aang's going to be alone. I'm presuming that we're going to have Katara and Ahsoka like in cocooned or whatever, right? And well, a lot of Aang and Zuko and Iroh and maybe a big chunk of Ozai and Azula. I'm presuming that's who else do you have to do? Maybe some of the. So they'll probably use this to develop Zuko's character a bit more and whatnot, right? There was a great episode in the animation, whatever, that where you got Zuko and Aang's backstory as kind of this simultaneous event, which was really good. They can't do that here; it's too late. I don't know. I mean, it's just like I said. This episode is trapped by the previous writing structure, which was bad. In and of itself, it's not too problematic. It's what got them here, right? So, which is why I don't think this is going to be a long review. I'm just going to point out some stuff. And there's a bunch of good individual scenes in here, right? We saw Katara reliving the death of her mother and why she died. So now we got that flashback. Now we know the full story, and at least for the TV show version, the live action version. We saw Sokka and his doubts with his father. Which, by the way, I mean, I don't remember if that's true or not in the animated, but it seems, I don't know. It seems. It just seems like we're it's pointless because I doubt it's going to have an effect on the future that he had that fear, right? So we got this. We didn't even need to see Katara and Sokka's fears. They should have just been like captured or whatever, because it's not going to have any. I don't think it'll have any real effect. And if it's not going to have an effect on the story, right? You might not put it in. So that's kind of my thoughts there. Let's kind of page through this, and let's see, hopefully YouTube won't zonk me on this one. Let's get some subs up there. So we see Katara constantly. We see. Oh, this is the flashback. Sorry. No, not the flashback. This is them escaping Okay. So why doesn't Aang do anything? Like, why didn't he work with Katara to like use some air on them as well? I mean, it's like, so I don't want to call woke. I really don't want to do it, but it seems like they're making Aang a passive character except when they need the Avatar state. Okay, it just seems like what they're doing. And again, back to the point when I said the small individual character moments are are well done. Like this individual, them the actors are acting. It's two kid actors, newbies, and you can see that kind of maybe the camaraderie they have off the camera. Like the little kids, maybe they play video games or whatever. You can see a little bit showing up, and you can see, and this scene is pretty cool. Like as far as individual, right? But the thing is, to make a cohesive show or a movie, you can't just have like 25 individual great scenes. You have to have them as part of a great whole. And the whole so far, and I don't want to hawk on well the whole thing is bad or whatever, but I wanted to like this episode. I saw things in it that I was like okay with. But when I think about this episode, this is my biggest criticism. I don't know the last time I'll say it. My biggest criticism of this episode is that it's been subject to the damage of the previous four episodes writing. So anything that was good in this episode is serving the cause of bad writing, which we will see near the end. So there's a theme, blah blah blah. Now they get to this thing here where, okay, this seems like a little bit of wokeism, the insertion of environmental crap. I mean, it's true the Avatar is supposed to protect the whole world and keep it in balance, humans and nature and all that sort of stuff. But forests burn and heal. I mean, forest fires are natural. They just really understand. If humans weren't here, there'd still be forest fires constantly from lightning strikes and lava and whatever. And that part nature evolved to compensate for them. Those trees, those it burns off all the weak shrubs. The trees that survive evolve through the process of evolution become more resistant to fire. That's kind of what happened with the forest fires in the U.S. and Canada. They put out natural fires, so the trees that were resistant to fire got killed off by the wild undergrowth and whatever. So then whole forests would just burn down eventually, and it took them to realize what they made the mistake. But that's a whole kit and caboodle to get into. Again, I really dig this scene here with Sokka meeting the little girl, the doll, the interaction. He's trying to calm her down. This by the way, this is actually some good writing, a tiny bit of it. So we've established that Sokka is the leader of his people right now. He's learned to deal with children. He's learned this stuff. So he's a frightened child, which is something he would have responsibility as a leader of his village and a protective warrior. Children are frightened. He would have to try to calm them down. We see a demonstrated skill here. So this individual scene is well written and could be work with it, but then they get the story of what happened with the Fire Nation. More of Aang being a jerk to Zuko being a jerk to his subordinates. Fire Lord Ozai and Azula trying to get her father. Now, so in the animation, Ozai clearly favored Azula, and she was driven mad the same way he was, his dad was. So something about being the Fire Lord has been driving them mad for several generations. They never get into that, I think, even in the animation. And Azula's gotten batshit crazy too, right? So whereas in this, he seems to be planning to play his children off against one another to see which one of them could be the biggest jerk, and then he'll get his evil psychotic air. I'm not happy with this act, with the way Azula is being portrayed, and even if she shouldn't be in this season. Let's talk about Spirit Realm again. Nothing crazy here. Uses Avatar abilities to get in Spirit World, and they get sucked in, which. And then we get to this whole sequence. Okay, fine. no real problems with most of this. Individually, they're in the spirit trap that Ko has now. I don't recall that any of them had an encounter with Ko. It was an Aang thing that Katara and Sokka should not be in the spirit realm. And I have a feeling that they're going to basically. To the Skipsies. They're basically going to turn Ko into a straight out villain, right? Whereas he's an amoral entity that is predatory by nature, right? So as long as you don't you control your emotions around him, you're safe, which the Avatar should be able to. And Aang has training for that already to be able to stay calm. He's basically a monk in training, So it's like, now, will they, make Ko back into the sort of helpful might be the wrong word. I'm trying to think of the right word for it. He does give information to Aang, not because it's necessary to the balance of things, right? There's a sort of balance that has to be at play that the Avatar enforces. And in the animation, it's the location of the moon and ocean spirits. But here it just seems to come across as almost like Stephen King's It, Pennywise, It, just a monstrous villain. And now we have Zuko and Aang on quests, basically. And that's that. Like I said, this is going to be a short review. There isn't a lot to feel enthused about. I mean, maybe because I almost liked the episode, except I kept thinking of it in the context of the meta storyline set up. It just feels like a waste. It feels like they could have saved a lot of storyline by not having Katara and giving Katara and I mean on Prophet of the Dragon sort of live watch where he was talking about it. He made a good point that I made a mistake with there's basically like 1,440 minutes or something like that in all 3 seasons. So there's almost a dead match to do. You could literally do 8 live action hours to match almost 8 animated hours per season and tell almost the exact same story, just depicted physically differently, right? So, but yet they're filling in stuff that didn't happen in the animation, in the live action, and they pull stuff in from next season into this season. Right? So what are they going to fill next season? More made-up stuff? Right? It seems they decided that they're not going to adapt Avatar. They're going to make their version of Avatar. And the story of Avatar, is not that Aang gets super powerful and crushes Ozai. It's not a superhero fight. Aang fights reluctantly. He fights, but he wins. But he doesn't kill Ozai. He limits his bending powers, which takes away his ability to be harmed. He uses maybe spirit bending or something like that. I don't remember the name for it. Something like the Avatar can do. And this is setting it up to Aang is so far that Aang has to be a sort of force of destruction to conquer the Fire Nation or whatever, and it's just setting up a big superhero fight, and that's the purpose, and that's not the purpose. The purpose is to try to get the Fire Nation to be sane again, to get their leadership to calm down. And this is the thing, in the animation, we learn that the Fire Nation peoples, not all of them are happy with this war. Uncle Iroh, for example, learned through penance, his son, who we saw the flashback death last episode, Uncle Iroh, it's not so much he grieves the loss of his son, right, which he does, it's that he thinks that the loss of his son is his dharma was dharma, the cosmic balance of right and wrong, taking his son away from him because he did evil acts and brought upon his own son. So that's why he turned away from violence and from the warlike ways of the Fire Nation family, because from Sozin on, they're all crazy. Apparently, the main family. And so it feels. I feel disappointed more than anything. I was talking with Steve with that, and so anyway, the point I'm getting back with this is, just to keep it on focus, okay, is that this is not about, the show is not about just good guy violence versus bad guy violence, and it seems what they're setting up. That, or they're gonna do like actual Justice Warrior called it the reverse writing Uno card. Like they're gonna stoke it up so Angus kind of told you have to fight, you have to crush the enemy and see them dream before you, hear lamentations of their women and all that. Which is great in Conan, of course, but not in. And at the end, he's gonna come to the same sort of conclusion where he and they're gonna have him like maybe kill. I don't know if they'll have him kill Ozai or they'll have him do the reverse writing card where he spares Ozai, but then Ozai kills himself by a backstab or something. But I just, it just feels like they're trying to not write the same story. They're trying to write the same characters, similar characters, and a similar sort of strategic level of the story as the big events happen, but they're trying to tell their own actual implementation of that story rather than the one that we know clearly worked 15, 20 years ago. Anyway, sorry for the ramble. I'm going to call it here. There's, get on to watch the next one. Oh, I want to watch Dune Part 2 myself right now. Anyway, my name is Matt. This has been Unbearable 73. Have a nice night. And if you like it, give me a like. If you're not, then dislike. Share it out, please. Have a nice day.